These are some other finished, more full color sketches, so you can see underpainting and really isolated highlight, but with pretty saturated and dark color. These also have backgrounds, so there's also something to that can forward our next conversation. So these have sort of these cloudy shadow backgrounds, but you'll notice show title, character, and point of appearance in the production. This one's maybe useful as well. You see all that chicken scratch handwriting everywhere. Those are my notes about what it's made out of and how the construction is working. So this isn't draftsmanly. This is pretty spontaneous kind of communication about, let's say what this says, bodice with peplum of cutwork leather with tiered sleeve, pin tuck corset, gray, black, violet, and green. That's just describing the palette. Here's another one. I think this is her murder dress. So this one also has a couple of different implied backgrounds where there's both horizon line, as was in the previous floorboards, a little bit of suggestion of what the set was doing in terms of door frames, and then some blurry kind of clouded shadow. So these are more from the same. So this is Lizzie's sister. This is her friend. Some of the background that's been suggested, there's a lot of notes that you can see. This is Bridget, she was the maid. This is kind of a combination of a thing I do fairly often, which is horizon line and some kind of implied framing that helps describe kind of the lines of the set, right? I'll do arches or diagonals, things like that that help describe sort of the movement of the environment, and I always have a horizon line. This is one where there was a really clear kind of Victorian hardwood floor, so I gave that also, and that's just pencil, right? And then some murky shadow work. Some done before I ever started painting the figure and some done after the fact. Right? So you will notice that Lizzie herself has, this was her Act 1 look, this is her Act 2 look, this was just her murder look, so this look wasn't actually in a specific, it wasn't in a specific act or scene. It was towards the end of Act 1, but it basically was for like 1.5 musical numbers. So I've just noted this is her bloody dress. Right? Other things you can do to note sort of the time and place that a costume appears in a show might be to write like a lyric or a song title, a musical number title or sequence. Sometimes in something like a Shakespeare or a classical play where there are fewer notations of act and scene, you might put a bit of dialogue or a line to show like when they're appearing. I think another thing to note is that usually you're trying to isolate your costume sketch in a moment. So you usually envision the character in one scene or delivering a piece of dialogue or singing a certain musical number or something like that that corresponds to when they wear their costume. Right, so in these cases, that's really what you're seeing. Now, the ones that I just did these tutorials on. Let's do a little background demo with this sketch. First, we'll go ahead and try a really quick drawing in of a frame. I'm using a straight edge. I could freehand it, but just for the sake of demonstration, I'll use this ruler. I'll draw this in sort of like a door frame that also provides a guideline as a film would that places our focus behind her head. We can create frames that are centralized around the figure, as old Hollywood costume sketches usually did. And we can also do what I'm about to do here, which is placing, this is just a corner bracket that pops the page a little bit. You will sometimes see people do like a whole pencil line frame that goes around the entire perimeter of the sketch. That's also a pretty tame and uncontroversial choice. None of this is required in the background department, but I just want to show you a few different possibilities. We've got a few different possibilities on this sketch. Corner brackets, sketched in architecture, a little bit of sketchy shadow, and an interior frame around the figure. With this one, let's start from scratch. We'll give her a pretty clean and simple border around the edge. This is about probably 3/8 of an inch from the perimeter, and I'll go ahead and use the straight edge. I'll crop her in a little bit closer because I drew her kind of off center and then cut her down. So I think I could cut her down additionally after I create this border. Let's give it a signature. I'm going to put it down by her foot. And let's put some title block information in. I've made this up, but I'm going to call this Mary Kay Cosmetic Uniform. It's blue, so it couldn't possibly be a Mary Kay Cosmetic uniform, which would need to be a special kind of pink. But and let's call it it's a fall sales look. So this is an instance where we wouldn't have an act and scene, and we wouldn't have any like narrative storytelling location we could give it, so we need to give it other identifying information. In a situation like this, it'd be similar in some ways to designing like a parade or an event. So I wouldn't know who the actor is, there wouldn't be a character, so I might just label a look by number. Now I'm going to add some detail notes about fabrication, about garment construction, about potentially color tones and shifts. That might seem like it's not necessary, but sometimes you'll note color because in emailing sketches or reproducing sketches, the colors will shift. So there's not really an incorrect amount of notation to put in, and if anything, erring on the side of more is good. Because if there's anything misleading about your illustration style or your brushwork, the notes will clarify your intention. And certainly, if you have any knowledge of garment construction that can help direct the drapers and cutters who would be actually constructing the garment, feel free to write things like that in. If you don't have that sort of pre-existing knowledge about clothing construction, don't stress. The people who would be in charge of making it will ask those questions and engage in those conversations to answer those details, even if you don't know them right off the get-go. Your handwriting should be legible, even if it's loose and scribbly like a previous sample I showed you. It's better than nothing. And now we've got a lot of information here. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of a horizon line behind her ankles to ground her in the sketch and give her a little bit of implied dimension. And let's go ahead and do like a little quick pencil kind of scribble shadow at her feet to further place her on the paper. So if I backed her on a white paper and crop her down, she is done.